Welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Hostile Carrot. Today I have episode 1 of what's going to be one of the best MX bikes tutorials on YouTube. I gotta say, I'm approaching 1,000 hours played on this game, and I'm finally starting to feel comfortable. So through this video series, I want to tell the people who've got maybe 50 to 250 hours a lot of tips and tricks that I wish I had known when I was starting out on MX bikes. So I've made this video to tell you some of the tracks that I believe you should be learning some of your fundamental skills on. In particular, when you first download the game, obviously you're just going to want to go grind out some of those stock tracks, Forest in particular. And I'm going to talk about 5 intermediate level tracks that I believe you absolutely need to download if you want to push towards fast enough to try qualifying for some league races or at least winning a couple of public lobbies. So with that said, let's get right into it. We're going to be kicking things off at Musket Hills, and for this video I did put these 5 tracks in the order I believe to be from easiest to most difficult. So Musket Hills, relatively new track, super fun track, and the reason I believe this to be one of the best tracks for beginner to intermediate level players to start to get comfortable on is this track is a very gentle transition from the super groomer, pretty easy Forest Raceway. This track is going to introduce the concept of what I call chatter, being there is some braking bumps on this track. There's a lot of like small moguls, enough for you to occasionally break traction, but these moguls, again, not quite big enough to really cause you to crash a whole ton. Another reason I absolutely love this track, especially for newer players, all the berms on this track are caked up super tall, so they're relatively easy corners to maintain your momentum through. As you see me going back and forth here, just trying to stay on the throttle as much as possible through all of these corners, and it really does help when you got these big caked up berms. Really the goal for this game, you know, you're going to start on those stock tracks like Forest Raceway, one of my favorite tracks on the game, but ultimately as you get better at Forest, where you can run laps over and over, that track does break down nice, but in general it's just too smooth. There's not enough braking bumps. You're not totally learning all the skills that you need, in particular if you're trying to get to a level where you can ride the ARL Supercross tracks and the AMA motocross tracks. The AMA Supercross tracks coming out through ARL for the 2025 Supercross season right now. And I just gotta say, if you're newer to the game, you're going to be setting yourself up for failure if you just start downloading some of the most difficult tracks on the game and trying to run them, because you're going to crash over and over and over. In particular, the ruts, the whoops in the corners, the braking bumps into corners. There's just a lot of different variables that are going to cause you to crash. And if you test out some of the tracks in this video, you're going to find that you're a little bit more comfortable. These are probably going to test your skill ability, but not be so difficult that you can't even make it around the track. Next up, we're on Widowmaker, and I highly advise running this track because first of all, it's super fun, very high speed, a lot of huge jumps, and in particular with the huge jumps, this is going to be the perfect place to practice various jumping methods, in particular seat bouncing and scrubbing lips. You can also throw fat whips out here. That's always fun, but not necessarily great for racing. Also, this track does a pretty good job of introducing the concept of whoops, kind of like we're bouncing through right there without being overly technical. And yes, by the end of the video, I'm going to get you guys on a Supercross track so you can really test your skills in a fun and safe environment. But like I mentioned, this is a perfect track to practice 2 really important jumping methods. First, I'll talk about the seat bounce, and the seat bounce is what you're going to want to do if you want to increase your height and distance. Say you're coming up short on a triple over and over, you just need a little bit more distance. All you need to do to seat bounce is sit when you're at the base of a lip and then stand when you're at the very top of the lip. That preloads the suspension. You should go a little bit extra far. And then the other tactic you're going to be wanting to practice on this track is the scrub. The scrub is probably the most important racing maneuver because you're actually scrubbing height off your jumping, focusing on going forward as fast as possible. In order to scrub on MX bikes, all you have to do is sit as you approach or at the base of a lip and then as you're maybe halfway up the lip, press both sticks left or right in the same direction to lean the rider weight. You're actually going to want to turn the left stick the way you're turning at the very tip top of the lip to break traction off the lip, and then once you're in the air, just mash the sticks back in the other direction to bring your bike back under you. Again, this is a great track to practice scrubs because there is so many huge jumps, and that's a critically important maneuver, which I hope to talk about more in my upcoming videos. And just like that, we're running the third track in this video, and this is Outpost. Outpost being one of my favorite tracks on the game. Super interesting track, relatively short, rides almost like a Supercross track, but obviously it's sandy and it is a motocross track. One of the main reasons I'm highly suggesting you download Outpost and spend some laps on here is because, first of all, the sand handles very differently than the clay or topsoil tracks on this game. In this sand, you're going to slide, your wheels might spin as you attempt to accelerate out of a corner, and there is a lot of sand national tracks, Cairo GP being one of my favorites. You're going to want to be comfortable on this soil before you start testing the tracks that have even more braking bumps. Again, another reason I'm recommending Outpost is because this track is really introducing chatter, but in a way that's not totally undoable. As you can see, these sand tracks start out beat up, lots of braking bumps into and out of the corners, and you're really going to need to get comfortable through these bumpy sections as you progress onto some of the more difficult tracks in the game. And even then, the easier tracks, they're still going to break down over the course of a race, so you're just going to want to get really comfortable dealing with bumps, especially introducing the bumps in the corners there. As promised, we're turning it over to Russ. This is going to be the Supercross track I recommend you download if you're relatively newer to MX bikes. First of all, this track, mega sick. Tons of different line options here with the doubles or triples. Also, I believe it to be at least the easiest Supercross track I've downloaded on the game. If you're only 50 hours into MX bikes, you're still going to struggle with this. But, you know, if you can churn out consistent laps on forest, the simple fact of the matter is you need to challenge yourself, increase your skills, because you get comfortable on this track and you start to feel like you're running pretty good. Then you download Mouse Philadelphia Supercross or something and realize there's a whole lot left to learn. But again, this is one of the easier Supercross tracks on the whole game. Great variety in jumps, corners of all different natures, but also not too difficult. No braking bumps out here, so you can really just focus on trying to make it through the various rhythm sections. The corners are pretty big and open without multiple ruts, so you don't have to corner perfectly to hit a good line. And then there is these whoops here, which the one thing I'm going to tell y'all for now is just click a gear up in the whoops, lean back a little bit until you start to get bucked forward, and practice. And now we're moving on to the most difficult track that I've put in this video. This is going to be Kellz 2023 Fox Raceway. And this is probably what I recommend to be your first pro track that you try on MX bikes. Again, with this being a pro AMA track, run in some of the pro MX bikes leagues, it is a relatively difficult track. But compared to most of the pro motocross tracks, the braking bumps into the corners are not super vicious. You're not automatically just going to get hucked over the bars if you even tap the brake as you're entering the corners. There's a lot of good jumps on here. We're going to be getting used to the multiple ruts in the corners and also kind of getting bounced around in these corners. So if you're a newer player to the series, I really hope this video has found you and you found it helpful. I was fortunate enough a little later on when I was playing the game to meet some fast guys who helped me out, but I learned mostly a lot, at least via trial and error on this game, just figuring things out, and that's not totally a whole lot of fun because this game's incredibly difficult, and I'm sure you already know that. But I cannot reiterate enough that practicing the right tracks is going to help you get fast quicker without getting overly frustrated. And another thing I need to mention, you should be running these tracks and testing. It's a whole lot of fun playing online, but when you're just trying to avoid getting taken out over and over again, and I cannot reiterate the importance enough of just battling with your ghost, so you don't got to worry about getting taken out. You can try various lines, inside, outside, battling your ghost and testing, just figuring out what works with you. It's also going to be the perfect format to experiment with various bike setup modifications if you're consistently having similar issues like getting bucked forward, not getting enough torque out of a corner. You can mess with your gear ratios, your fork dampening, your compression settings, and I will be talking about all that much more in the second video. But like I said, I really think the most important thing for trying to get comfortable in this game at first is just going to be practicing the right tracks, because you're not going to be learning the skills you need to know to go fast just playing forest over and over and over, because it is too groomed out, the corners are too easy. But if you just run straight to the ARL Supercross tracks, you're going to have a bad time, get frustrated, and probably quit the game. I hope y'all that doesn't happen to y'all. I want y'all to have as much fun as possible, because this game can be very fun when you get good at it, but it takes a while. As always, though, I appreciate y'all tuning into the video, and I look forward to catching y'all in the next one very, very soon. Until then, peace, y'all.